As I said in my opening words, Sukkot is often referred to as Zman simchateinu, the season of our joy, and that joy is not something simple. It arrives not as carefree indulgence, but as a sacred release, a return to life after intensity. The Torah gives us a festival that is both a celebration and a reminder, a time to rejoice and a time to remember how fragile we are. When we examine the Torah, we see a period when the Israelites were primarily an agricultural people, and Sukkot was a harvest festival, the joyful culmination of the year's labor. Like most ancient holy days, it was a time for relaxation and celebration. The book of Numbers lists which sacrifices to offer on which days. We're going to skip that tomorrow in Torah study. But Leviticus 23 provides the familiar components, the lulav, the command to dwell in Sukkot, and the reminder that our ancestors lived in such dwellings in the story of the Exodus. But when I read that description now, I can't help but think about what it must have felt like, the experience of living and eating outside after the holy days, after the intensity of the days of awe. I'll note that when I lived in the mountains, my son wanted to sleep in the sukkah the first year we were up there. And that did not last the whole night. Let's just say, drops about 30 degrees at night. So I imagine the ancient sages looking at the calendar and saying, let's give everyone a break. They've spent weeks in reflection and in repentance. Let's give them a week-long outdoor party, effectively. They can eat and drink and sit around a fire, and they deserve it. Their souls are clean, their hearts are lighter. Let them celebrate. So that's my first way of thinking about Sukkot, essentially as a sacred party, not a frivolous one, but a ritualized joy. We spend so much of Elul, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur looking inward, confessing, repairing, purifying, and Sukkot's the moment we exhale. The Jewish version is stepping outside after being indoors for too long, a holy reminder that joy is an integral part of spiritual life. The later rabbis weren't content to leave it at that. They asked a deeper question. What does it mean to leave the safety of our homes and dwell in a flimsy hut, essentially? What lesson hides inside that commandment? And the Talmud's answer transforms the holiday. It teaches that Sukkot is a reminder of human vulnerability. The sukkah itself, the temporary dwelling we build in our yards or at the temple, becomes a symbol of our fragility. It is not supposed to last forever. In fact, it cannot. A sukkah is designed to be impermanent. The Talmud even sets limits on its height, explaining that if one builds it too tall, it becomes sturdy, and that defeats the purpose. A sukkah must be fragile. You should be able to see the stars through the roof and feel a bit of wind and maybe even some rain. The sukkah is a reflection of us, temporary, beautiful, and vulnerable. So, a sort of funny story. When I lived in Israel for a year, my parents came to visit me during Sukkot. Sukkot in Israel is it's a week off of school. There's essentially, it's a pretty festive time. Now, my dad calls me up and he's like, says to me, we got an incredible deal on a hotel package. And I'm like, oh no. Why am I like, oh no? Because there are these incredible deals on hotel packages for Hasidim, essentially. So it's going to be my parents, incredibly reformed Jews, and a bunch of Hasidim in a hotel. All kinds of funny things happen. My mom calls me up and says, David, it's so weird. The elevator stops on every floor on Shabbat. So a part of that package was a night in the sukkah, which was on the roof with a dinner, and it essentially rotated through so that everybody in the hotel could have a night. My parents didn't want to go. It's essentially a night with a bunch of Hasidim. I'm like, we should go. It'll be really fun. So we went up there, and rain in Israel comes fast. So, absolutely pretty beautiful weather, a cool breeze flowing through, and 10 minutes later, major storm, wind blowing like crazy. I'm not exaggerating. The sukkah pretty much blows off the roof as everybody grabs, the kugel and runs inside for cover. So why do I tell this story? The sukkah is fragile. I learned a very living example of that, on that trip. And that's the Talmud's insight as well. The sukkah is a spiritual mirror. It shows us what it feels like to live without illusion, to accept that our homes, our bodies, and even our certainties are fragile. And yet, paradoxically, that very fragility is what opens the heart to joy. Only when we stop pretending to be invincible can we truly celebrate being alive. Sukkot teaches us that the same impermanence that frightens us also frees us. When we sit in the sukkah, we practice living lightly, trusting that even without solid walls, we're held by something greater. Centuries later, the Kabbalists in Tzfat in the north of Israel add another layer to the tradition. They say that the sukkah does not only shelter our bodies, it also shelters our emotions. So in the Kabbalistic tradition, we not only invite guests in the form of family and friends into the sukkah, but we symbolically invite 7 spiritual guests on the 7 nights of Sukkot in Israel, 8 here, 7 if you're Reform, big disagreement. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Joseph, and David are invited each night. And each of these, the Aramaic word for guests is ushpizin, represents a different emotional quality. Abraham, loving kindness; Isaac, restraint; Jacob, integration; Moses, endurance; Aaron, humility; Joseph, integrity; and David, grounded joy. So by welcoming these guests into our sukkah, the mystics taught we invite these qualities into ourselves. Each night we honor one, we practice integrating that aspect into our emotional life. And it's insightful. It's really a spiritual psychology about emotional balance that follows through the days, of way of bringing all our feelings to the table, where the sukkah becomes a classroom of the heart. And as I said, it's a powerful idea, a practice of emotional integration. The Talmud taught us to face vulnerability, and then the mystics teach us ultimately to embrace it, to make room for every emotion that lives inside us. When we welcome all parts of ourselves, love and restraint, humility and strength, fragility and joy, we become whole. So what is Sukkot? A party? A meditation on mortality? A workshop in emotional wholeness? And as I like to say in Torah study, yes. That's almost always the answer. Yes, even if those things disagree with each other among rabbinic texts, the answer is yes. It begins as a party, it becomes a reflection on fragility, and ends in a celebration of integration, and thereby the perfect festival to come after Yom Kippur. After soul-searching, we emerge forgiven but fragile, renewed but raw, and Sukkot says, don't retreat just yet. Just yet. Take that tender openness you've earned and dwell in it. Sit under a roof that lets the light through, feel the wind, let joy and vulnerability coexist. When we celebrate Sukkot, we learn that joy isn't the absence of pain, it's the courage to rejoice despite it. Fragility isn't failure, it's proof we're alive. Spiritual growth isn't about walling ourselves off from emotion, it's about inviting every part of ourselves inside, and that's why the sukkah, for all its flimsiness, feels holy. It's not perfect. That's what makes it holy. It's the honesty, the humility, that's what makes it holy. And we should also reflect that in our life. Our lives, no matter how carefully we build them, is ultimately a temporary dwelling. So let's imagine sitting in the sukkah. We won't have to imagine. We're going to have oneg in there afterwards, so we'll go out to the sukkah on a cooler evening. The lights sway in the breeze. Hopefully there'll be some laughter and conversation through the branches. Well, it's not lights in our sukkah in any case. The walls maybe move a little bit. If it's windy, no wind. Then you feel both safe and exposed, both grounded and impermanent. And in that moment, we understand that's life. That's joy. That's what it means to be human. So the Torah gives us a party, the rabbis provide us with perspective, the Kabbalists give us heart, and Sukkot asks us to bring all of them together to celebrate, to feel, to be appreciative, to feel gratitude. How many times do I have to say gratitude? Beneath the roof that always mercifully lets the light shine